The arrival of the new Millennium was being celebrated all over the world. In 2000, the highly anticipated PlayStation 2 launched successfully. The first episode of the children's series Dora the Explorer premiered, and in theaters, Sky Movie was stealing all the attention. Meanwhile, in WWE, the company was possibly going through its best year. New great wrestlers would arrive and things would continue at another level. Thanks to Supermaster Ball 1987 for commenting. Leave a comment and you might appear in future videos. Don't forget, under any circumstances, to like the video. When we last saw Triple H, Stephanie McMahon had turned into a villain and they were about to create their McMahon regime. Healthmate and Big Show was the WWE champion. However, all of that would soon change when on the third episode of Raw in January, Triple H and his reformed D-Generation X would work together to help him take the title from Big Show. This allowed him to begin his third reign at the top under the McMahon regime. Mate was staring directly at Mick Foley, and although this was originally supposed to lead to Mankind versus Triple H at the Royal Rumble, in the end, Foley would feel the need to transform into a more sadistic persona to make sure the job got done right. That's why, when the event arrived, Cactus Jack would face the game. The match ended up being one of the best of the entire Attitude Era. Also that night, Taz made his debut on the undercard when he knocked out Kurt Angle in just 3 minutes and 16 seconds. The Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys would have a classic tables match, and Chris Jericho would become the new Intercontinental Champion. After defeating Chyna and the Violent Holly in a triple threat match, the main event would revolve around The Rock. Yes, this was the night when, with Steve Austin temporarily absent, The Rock rose to the top, when he would survive 29 other competitors to win it all. This Royal Rumble ending was a disaster as The Rock's feet touched the ground before Big Show's. So the Giant would technically be the winner and would use this reason to demand a shot against The Rock at the next event, No Way Out, February 27, with the condition that if he got the victory, he would be the one to go to the main event of WrestleMania before moving on to WrestleMania. Kurt Angle would have his first success when he became European Champion. Lita made her debut and helped Essa Rios become the light heavyweight champion, as well as 4 of the main prospects from World Championship Wrestling. Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn arrived in WWE to make a name for themselves, becoming known as the Radicals. Triple H had to prepare for his upcoming Hell in a Cell rematch against Cactus Jack. So, in an attempt to even the odds of the match, it was established that if Foley couldn't beat him, he would have to retire forever. And so, the match would take place at the No Way Out event. After a match that lasted 24 minutes and saw Triple H achieve another great victory, as well as throw Cactus Jack onto the top of the cell. Apparently, this result would put an end to his arch-rival's career once and for all. Meanwhile, at the event, Kurt Angle would defeat Chris Jericho to become the Intercontinental Champion. The Dudley Boys took the gold from the New Age Outlaws and Big Show. With a little help from Shane McMahon, he would achieve an unexpected victory over The Rock, stealing his WrestleMania main event. This process would lead to a series of segments in the following weeks, where we would see the Giant find an ally in Vince McMahon. Someone who had returned to the company to take power and felt that this was the best way to do it. A triple threat title match was set for WrestleMania, Triple H versus The Rock, Big Show. But that wasn't the whole story. Linda McMahon also appeared to announce she would add a wrestler who never had such an opportunity to the main event of WrestleMania, and it would be Mick Foley. That's how the main event would have a McMahon in every corner, and the 4 competitors would face each other before WrestleMania. Stephanie McMahon would strengthen her team's power when she became the women's champion. Another notable woman of the time, Trish Stratus, debuted as the manager. And when WrestleMania took place on April 2nd, she would be in her team's corner as they faced Al Snow and Stevie Blackman. Meanwhile, the rest of the WrestleMania matches included an extreme battle royal that allowed Foley to win the hardcore title. The reign of Kane and Spag was coming to a temporary end. Edge and Christian, the Dudley Boys, and the Hardy Boys would revolutionize the tag team wrestling scene with their ladder match. And Kurt Angle, who was the Eurocontinental Champion, would lose both titles during a triple threat match with Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho. In the main event, it all came down to two, when, after Big Show and Mick Foley had been eliminated, The Rock was left alone with Triple H. Fans would be shocked when Vince McMahon turned heel and betrayed The Rock. And in that way, Triple H would become the first heel in history to win the main event of WrestleMania. After that, just a few days later, Chris Jericho blew up the arena on Raw with a phantom victory for the WWE title. But the power of Triple H and Vince McMahon made him have to give it back. The People's Champion, he would get his rematch at Backlash with the promise that Stone Cold would be in his corner before that happened. Eddie Guerrero would charm Chyna with his Latino heat, and he made her even turn against her former ally Chris Jericho, costing him his European Championship during a match between him and Guerrero. This would cause a negative reaction toward Eddie, but he would still achieve significant success. The main event of Backlash featured The Rock and Triple H, although Stone Cold, who came out near the end of the match, received an absolutely incredible ovation. The People's Champion would finally get the big victory, as from that point on he would begin his fourth reign as WWE Champion. Stone Cold would remain off-screen, recovering from his neck injury. Judgment Day would come with Commissioner Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee. The Rock and Triple H aimed to settle their rivalry in a 1-hour Iron Man match. Meanwhile, on the preliminary card, Shane McMahon would defeat Big Show. In a last man standing match, Chris Benoit would overcome Jericho in a submission match for the Intercontinental title. Then, in the main event, the two most important guys in the company would wear each other out for a whole hour. The score at the moment was tied at 5, with only a few minutes remaining, and that's when, after having been missing for the last 6 months, The Undertaker would finally make his return to the company. Although this time in a very different way, yes, with a different look. This marked the debut of the American Badass Taker. He would come to the ring on a motorcycle to beat up all the friends and even Triple H himself. Unfortunately for The Rock, this would lead to Triple H getting a victory by disqualification at the last second, and as a result, the overall victory of the match. Thank you. But even if he became champion again, he would have little time to celebrate, since from there he would be forced to prepare for 3 challengers at the next King of the Ring event on June 25th. And that was because on this show, the main event would be a 6-man tag team match, where the champion would team up with Vince and Shane McMahon to face The Rock, Undertaker, and Kane, with the stipulation that if Triple H, Shane, or Vince were defeated by pinfall or submission, Triple H would lose the title to whoever pinned him. In this way, The Rock would win the championship by pinning Mr. McMahon for the 3 count. In the rest of the event, Kurt Angle and Rikishi would make it to the King of the Ring finals. With a match that lasted just over 5 minutes, we saw the Olympic hero come out victorious. The next night on Raw, Mick Foley replaced Shawn Michaels as the on-screen commissioner. And besides bothering Kurt Angle, this would also include Foley setting out to end the reign of terror of McMahon Hillsmay, who had harassed him quite a bit in the previous months. First, a new and deserving #1 contender for The Rock's title was named Chris Benoit. On July 23, The Rock would face Chris Benoit, although, sadly for the Rabid Wolverine, The Rock would be the one to take the victory. In the end, at that same event, Triple H had an incredible last man standing match with Chris Jericho. Meanwhile, Acolyte's protection agency Protection would defeat Edge and Christian to win the tag team titles, and then Val Venis would defeat Rikishi in a steel cage for the Intercontinental title. The following night, Lita would defeat Stephanie McMahon and win the Women's Championship in the first women's main event of Raw, which sadly is not recognized by WWE as such. On the other hand, Trish would be forced to team up with Triple H during a tag team match on the Red brand. This led the billion-dollar princess to start suspecting that the newcomer was having an affair with her husband. But this wouldn't be the end of the romantic drama between the power couple, as Kurt Angle would fall in love with Stephanie, and there would also be scenes that would make people think otherwise. This rivalry led them to face off at SummerSlam on August 27 in a triple threat match for the WWE title, where both men would face The Rock. However, before that happened, the preliminary matches would see former members of the X face each other, and SPAC would take the victory. Taz would sink even further when he lost to Jerry Lowland in just over 4 minutes. And the newly formed Right to Censor would defeat the Toku. Chyna would win the Intercontinental title. In a mixed tag team match, she and Eddie Guerrero defeated Val Vines and Trish Stratus. Steve Blackman sent Shane McMahon from the top of the stage scaffolding in an impressive stunt. And Chris Benoit versus Chris Jericho was, without a doubt, the best match of the night. Then, in the main event, The Rock remained the champion, while Kurt Angle suffered a severe concussion at the beginning of the match. If we quickly jump to the next event, Unforgiven, probably the most notable thing about that event is that the Hardy Boys would win the tag team titles, after beating Edge and Christian in a steel cage. We would see Stone Cold backstage conducting an investigation about who ran him over, and on October 9th in an episode of Raw, it would be revealed that Rikishi was the one behind the hit and run. At that time, he claimed that he only did it so his cousin could get a title shot. The fans didn't like this angle at all. Rikishi insisted that he did it for The Rock at the event, right? Mercy Stone Cold got his rematch and hit Rikishi so many times that Rikishi passed out and couldn't continue the match. Aside from that, the rest of the event that night would see Alita and Trish Stratus facing each other again on opposite sides of the ring, during a mixed tag team match. With Tess and Albert versus the Hardy Boys, Kurt Angle challenged The Rock for the WWE title in the main event. And what made this match more interesting was that, despite having been defeated by Triple H the previous month at the Olympics, the hero had managed to convince Stephanie McMahon to be his manager, a duty she had always performed perfectly. After 21 minutes, Kurt pinned The Rock to win the World Championship in under a year with the company. Yes, it had been a meteoric rise to the top, but it wouldn't end there, as now the new champion would have to defend it against each of WWE's heavyweights, the first of whom would be The Undertaker. And that match would take place at Survivor Series on November 19, where Kurt would cheat against the American Badass just to somehow walk out with his title. Meanwhile, we would also see Ivory versus Lita facing off for the women's title, with Ivory taking the victory. Steve Austin faced Triple H, since Triple H revealed that he was the one who hired Rikishi to take out Austin a year earlier, hoping that he would take him out of WWE, unleashing all his fury. The rattlesnake completely destroyed him. Triple H would try to escape the arena by car, but Austin would pick him up with a forklift and drop him 30 feet to the ground. Would he make it to Armageddon? On December 10th, the 6 top contenders would all face each other for the WWE title inside the Hell in a Cell. And this, of course, would mean having to defend the title against Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H, The Undertaker, and Rikishi Karango. I wasn't happy with the situation. The match had absolutely everything. They got out of the Hell in a Cell and went at it hard with parts of the set. Rikishi was thrown off by The Undertaker, and Karango seized the moment to win the match quickly. Afterward, Angled, showing his egocentrism, announced he had defeated his 5 toughest WWE challengers. And that's where the year 2000 would end, but wait for next year, because a shocking piece of news would shake the foundations of WWE.